Hi guys, and welcome back to another ITH video where today I have this. This is a brand new Porsche Cayenne. This is an E-Hybrid. But instead of just a standard review, I wanted to do a bit of comparison because we've also managed to get our hands on a very used 2011 version of the car. So let's have a look at the differences and see how Porsche has evolved its look. So first, let's take a look at the 2011 Cayenne. Now, you've still got the iconic big headlights that you get on the Cayenne, but what's different about the two is this front bonnet. On the old one, it comes very much more down into a V at the front, and the changes don't stop there actually. You still get the daytime LED running lights as part of the front grille, but the front grille on this, a lot skinnier and a lot narrower, because if we have a look at this brand new one, the LED daytime running lights down here, you still have the same, but a lot sleeker, and that goes to say the same applies really with the LED lights. They look so good. And coming down to the front grille, this front grille with the wide bonnet on this, it doesn't come down in as much into a V, makes this car have much more of a presence on the road. And as we move round, it's a shame that you have this huge, great adaptive cruise control radar stuck in the front, because I think it kind of disrupts the flow of the car. If we move around to the side, I suppose weirdly or not weirdly, depending on how you want to see it, the look of the car hasn't actually changed from the old 2011 up to the brand new latest model. The look, the silhouette, I suppose you could call it, of the cars, exactly the same. But the rear is very different. Let's spin the cars around and we can have a look at the back. So with both of these cars now turned around, we can have a look at the back, and there is a huge amount of change that's happened over the years. If we start with the 2011 version, first of all, you can just see how big the rear light clusters are on these. It's massive. And I think the new one looks a lot better. We'll see that in a second. The only thing I do like though on this is the rear spoiler. I just think it looks a bit cooler. It's got a few more lines to it and it looks quite sexy. As we move across, we've got the Porsche logo, which is in the same place as the new one, but not behind a really nice piece of glass. And actually this one's missing its Cayenne badge. That's fallen off over the years. If we come down to the exhaust system, now you can call this a fake exhaust tip or not, depending on how you see it. It's basically one exhaust channel at the back and then it splits out into two, but it's quite a clunky way. They've just basically bolted the tips on at the back. Let's have a look at the new one, because this is so good looking. I think it looks so good. You've got this now one singular light cluster that goes all the way across the back of the car with the Porsche logo set behind this little bit of plastic here, and they're starting to run this across all of their lines, so you'll see this on the new 911 as well. As we go down to the exhaust tips, these actually funnel down into a singular pipe, and I just think it looks a lot better, especially if you get down low and really look in. You go, oh yeah, I see what they've done. It looks really cool. And you've got these little aero bits, which I think just add a little bit of class to it. But weirdly, I like the spoiler on the old one. That's the only thing I'd probably put on this from the old one. The rest I think looks beautiful. The biggest changes, I think, for the whole thing, other than the rear, because there's a lot going on here, is the interior. Let's see how Porsche has gone from 2011 all the way up to the brand new model. So here we are in the old Cayenne, and well, when you see the new one, you'll see how dated this looks. But at the time, this was pretty good. This has got Porsche's old PCM system in it, which stands for Porsche's Communication Management. This is the screen in the middle and all the bins and gubbins behind it. It basically shows you the map, which looks really dated on this. Does still update with traffic, but as you can imagine, anywhere near London, it's just one big traffic jam, so a little bit pointless. In terms of a lot of the buttons that you find on this one, on the new one, you'll see that it's all been integrated into the new touchscreen, and it works quite well once you know where all the buttons are. That goes as well for the off-road controls, so all the off-road controls are also inside the system as well. When you look at something like the steering wheel slightly similar, although on the new ones they're all the kind of sport design steering wheel, so instead of these two stupid buttons that work both ways, which are really unintuitive, basically if you pull a paddle you go down a gear, so it's the wrong way, so you have to push the pedal to go up a gear. It's very odd. There is one thing, however, that I do like about this steering wheel, which I don't like about the new one, and that is that the little dial on the left, you've got two dials. On the new one, the right one controls the right-hand screen, and the left one controls the left-hand screen. In this, the one on the left just controls the volume, where you would expect the volume control to be, as opposed to in the new one where you have this weird little dial in the middle that you have to use for the volume. I think that's kind of it in this one. It's a little bit dated, so let's show you what you can get in a brand new one. And here we are in the new Cayenne, and as you can imagine, everything feels, well, modern. And instead of those 4 analog displays you have in the other one and the 1 digital one, on this one you get 4 digital displays and 1 analog one in the middle. That's your tachometer. As I said, unfortunately, this one on the left doesn't do the volume, and the volume is this silly little roller down here, which is just annoying, if I'm being completely honest. You do, though, get the paddles, which are great. You also get, to change the driving modes, this little Manatino switch down here, which also has the button in the middle for sports response, which when we take this out for a drive in a minute, I'll show you what that does. Center console then, you've got the new PCM, which is really nice. It's a really long LCD screen on here, which has got every option you can possibly want. You can get a little bit lost, but it's quite intuitive as to where you think things are. And then you've got the haptic buttons down here. So where I said in the other one, most of it's moved inside, there are a few controls down here. Your seat heating, your seat cooling, for instance, you can get at the tap of a button. And you can also change the climate control quite quickly here as well. And you've also got a button for off-road to find the apps in the system, the kind of the quick selects there. And of course, the gear stick, which they've kept right in the middle, but it looks a little bit more fancy than the last one. Now, this one has the optional Bose sound system, which does sound really good. There are huge amounts of extras, which when we're driving, I'll probably touch on a few, because you can go a bit mad on Porsches in terms of extras. And I just like the way it feels. It just feels a lot more solid. It feels a lot more modern. And it's one of those cars that only takes you probably half an hour once you've driven it and had a little play with all the settings to really get used to it. And just before we take it for a drive, thanks to the guys at BOTB.com. They have a winner of their dream car competition every single week. You only have to be 16 or over. It's a worldwide competition. They have over 150 different cars in the lineup, including the new Porsche Cayenne E-Hybrid. Check out the links in the description below, and you never know, you might just be next week's winner. So here we are in the brand new Cayenne E-Hybrid. Now this one has a 3-litre V6 petrol engine producing 340 horsepower. Now that might not seem a lot, but it can do a launch control that looks like this. Go. And that's 60. It's fast. Now compared to the diesel one that we had a look at earlier, trust me when I say that is slow compared to this. Because of the electric power of this, it has so much torque from the low end. It's got 400 Newton meters in total. Now, the difference between the two is the fact that with the old one, where you wanted to overtake something, you'd have to guess probably 5 seconds before you wanted to overtake said car in front, as to sticking your foot to the floor. With this, you've got so much power low down, you can just put your foot down and you'll overtake anything, especially if you use the little sports response button down here, which basically, just like the Panamera E-Hybrid that we did a review on, it primes the turbos, it tells the electric motors that you want full power now, and it gives you it for 30 seconds. And you can do launch controls like you saw, which are mind-bending actually for a car that's got 340 horsepower. I thought it would be a bit slower. This feels quick. So how does it ride? Well, it rides really well. If you've got the sports suspension, you can stick it in Sports Plus on the suspension and it firms things up really nicely. The car does think at times it's a 911. It's like, look at me, I'm being a 911. It's quite far from a 911, but it tries hard for a 4x4 and it does it quite well, I think. If you go for the active air suspension, it's phenomenal. This rides so beautifully like a cloud, and then you down here with the little haptic feedback buttons, push it a couple of times, we're in Sports Plus suspension and it just firms things up and it holds the road really well. It feels light years ahead of the one before. I don't want to use the word it feels a lot more modern again, but that's exactly what it is. It's just like Porsche have just developed more technology, they've whacked it all in the car. It's just so much of a nicer place to be. The drive is smoother, it's firmer when you want it to be, it's just more engaging. It's like a little, I tell you what, it's kind of like a 911 on stilts, and especially if you get the Turbo S E-Hybrid, it's even more like a 911 because that has a huge amount of power, so much more than this, yet this still feels fast. I really do like this, really do like it. Now, we need to talk about miles per gallon, because what will this do? Being a hybrid, Christian, surely it has many miles per gallon. Depends how you drive it really, and depends how you charge it. If you want to charge the electric battery with the inbuilt 3-litre petrol engine, don't expect to get any decent miles per gallon, because it will just chew it all to make electric power, which I think is completely pointless. Plug it in at home for that. But it does do a relatively decent mile per gallon. I mean, we're doing 45, which I think is kind of what I'd expect from this car. Don't expect the figures of like 200 miles per gallon that some companies quote that electric or hybrid vehicles have, because it just won't get that. With a little flick of the switch down here, you can turn it into e-power mode. So now we are running just on battery. Now, if the car is fully charged, it will do, and I'm giving it some credit here, 28 miles to a tank of electric. It's more like 22, because if you just give it a little bit of throttle, you're using a lot more power than you first initially thought, and it's going to eat into that battery. But I'd say around 22 miles. So if your journey isn't actually that bad, you could run it on electric power all the time and just plug it in when you get home. Just like on the Panamera E-Hybrid, you've got two flaps at the back. One side is for the petrol and the other side is for plugging in the cable. As you'd imagine, on the entertainment system in here, whilst you're driving, you get all the readouts you could possibly imagine for power delivery, how much charge you've got left, how long it will take to charge as soon as you plug it in, etc, etc. The systems they've got in the new Porsches are really, really good. And even though this is a comparison review, I thought we'd still get in the famous ITH options. What options should you spec on this car? Well, as I've mentioned, this is a £67,000 car at base price, but you are going to want to throw some options at it. There's a few on here which I think are probably worth it, and there's a few which I don't. For instance, if you want this moonlight blue metallic paint that's on this model, which I think is really, really nice, that's going to cost you £749. If you want the LED matrix headlights, now this also includes Porsche's Dynamic Light System Plus, which of course has an acronym, PDLS, that is £1,380. Basically what that gets you is the LED headlights that will also move as well. So when you start to move, it'll go round, and it'll also start to take out some of the lights in the cluster if it knows a car's coming the other way. Very handy, but £1,380, I'll let you decide whether you want that. I think it's quite nice. Soft closed doors. We've mentioned this on a Range Rover review. It is pointless. Everyone shuts a door on a car the same way. Unless you really do just gently push it in and let it shut itself, it's not worth it. If you do want soft closed doors though, you're going to have to pay 500 quid for them, £497. Roof rails with matte aluminum look. If you want that, I don't think it's worth it unless you want to start chucking stuff on the roof. £413. This is a really, really good option. Adaptive air suspension with level control and height adjustment. That has also Porsche's active suspension management, PASM. That will cost you £1,511. It just gives this car the ride that I really think it deserves. It is so soft, and when you start to put it in the other sport modes, it really does firm up, and it feels more like a sports car when you've got it in Sports Plus. That, I would say, is a must. Wheels, well, this one has the 20-inch Cayenne Sport wheels. That's going to cost £1,355, but there are many, many options when it comes to wheels, so please do go and have a look online for that. Seat heating on the front, £308. Side airbags in the rear, that's £291. You can have Porsche's InnoDrive, including adaptive cruise control. So that's basically the radar system in the front that lets you adaptively cruise. It'll monitor the car in front and it will keep the same distance. That is £2,172. Radars are not cheap, people. If you want the Bose sound system, that's £956. Again, I think it's worth it. It's pretty good. And this being a hybrid, the last one I want to touch on, you might want to have an onboard charger. Now, what this does in this car is it basically allows the petrol engine to charge the batteries. It's a 7.2 kilowatt charging unit that they can put in these cars. And depending on if you want to charge the battery and you don't want to plug it in at home every time, well, it's going to cost you £506. The only reason I'd spec this is if for some reason you think that you are going to be driving to countries or cities where they have an electric only zone, it might be worth it for that, so you can charge up on your way in and then you can use it. But it's got e-hold as well, so if you charge it at home, just hit the e-hold button. It will keep that charged until you need it. So I'm not sure that the onboard charging is really worth it. All in all, this car at a total price comes to £81,327. So it's been spec'd with quite a lot, but some of that I probably wouldn't bother with. So in conclusion, yes, £80,000 with some optional extras is rather a lot of money, but it is also the future, and that is the new price for the brand new Cayenne. As opposed to the old one, well, it is literally in another league, this thing. The hybrid technology makes it an absolute joy to drive, and it is fast. With only, you know, just less than 350 horsepower, it's still really, really quick. Funny enough though, there are two only little things about this old car that I like more than the new one, and that is the rear spoiler, and I know it's a tiny thing, but just the volume control on the steering wheel. I love that about that, but unfortunately, this isn't a bit of an old girl and it has been replaced, but it's been replaced by something that I think is absolutely fantastic. If this is the way the future is going, and please not all electric just yet, I like it. Guys, thank you so much for watching another ITH video here on the channel. We'll of course be back with more podcasts and loads more car reviews and crazy content coming soon. Bye for now.